Action Comics 1033, Philip K. Johnson and Daniel Sampier on the art.
Even though I know I love Action Comics right now, and it's probably my favorite Superman related thing in a long time, which, I mean, admittedly helps I wasn't reading Superman for a couple of years, but even before that, this is above what, a lot of stuff was at the last year or two before that. I still forget every issue that I'm like, oh yeah, I love Action Comics right now, and then I go to read it, I'm like, God damn it, this is so good.
Yeah, it's setting up a lot of big stuff. What we're kind of had teases before, and then obviously the annual kind of added to those teases by giving us some sort of almost hindsight to the stuff that's going to happen.
So excited for this War World stuff that's coming up, like truly.
It's super interesting, and this does advance it. Obviously, there's some of the Atlantean kind of like standoff. Some of Task Force X try to steal the MacGuffin thing. I can't remember what they call it.
Shard.
The whatever. Shard. Yeah, the shard of the thing that landed from the ship, the fuel source, whoever it is. And that's a bit of a standoff there, and Superman says, me and my family aren't going to let this like divulge into war. But there's a bit of a kerfuffle at the Justice League table where Aquaman doesn't feel listened to because he's like, no, Atlantis, this is theirs. You can't get them to turn it over. You understand how this looks the way it does. But there's a great moment later on though where Superman shows up with John and Kara, and they're like, basically, because there's like a blockade in the ocean where Atlantis is stopping all the ships, and saying, no, like, we're not letting you through. Blah 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 blah, and Superman's like, no, we're going to solve this some other way. We're not going to conflict. If either side fires, you're going to answer to us. But the more interesting stuff, I think, that's a great moment for Superman and like having the family there with them. But the more interesting stuff, I think, is the Phalosian. Am I saying that right? Have I learned this word yet?
I think so. Yeah, Phalosian.
Yeah, the Phalosian prisoner. Not that she's a prisoner just now, but.
Ex-prisoner.
Yeah, but she's still got her chains on, and she actually explains like just how like drilled in like this idea
why
of the
chains are important to them beyond being the tool of their subjugation that they have.
Basically, they've been manipulated to sort of like, so every time they win a fight in War World, they get an extra link in their chain, and
not just get a link, they take a link from the loser.
So the idea is that the people who keep winning have an easier time fighting because they can separate their hands further, right? And presumably can also strangle someone with their chain. And people who keep losing, like their hands are closer and they can't pull them apart, so it's obviously much harder to fight. But the idea that she's so proud of these links because she's won these fights and it's been drilled into her that this is important, and that she doesn't want to take it off because of that. Like, she doesn't realize that here the freedom means that she doesn't need the chains, and that like your hands can be as free as you want. You don't have to have this thing that
but there's still a sense of pride attached to it. Like, she has seemingly a lot of links. Like, her chain seems to be longer than average, I would assume. And
that's conditioning. That's like her being sort of brainwashed essentially into believing this,
definitely,
as a slave. And she acts out when Lois tries to like get her, hey, Clark made this, it's like a toy from Krypton, maybe you'll recognize it. And she slaps it over, and the dialogue is very specific here. She points out that it's fragile, so be careful. And she slaps it out of her hand, and it smashes on the floor. And it's this really conflicting thing. So we don't know exactly how they're doing this as of yet. Maybe it's the weird baby that the Mongols got that can see stuff.
I would assume so.
Yeah, but they're watching this. The baby, and when I say baby, it's a baby that's in like a tank. It's very Atomic Skull or.
I think when we first saw this in, was it Future State maybe?
It may have been
issues. It felt like some of the stuff in Hellboy. I'm forgetting the name of the ectoplasm.
It's a little bit Krang from Turtles or whatever, but it's a little baby in a tank at the top. It's like, think Mr. Freeze's helmet with like a baby inside it.
Kind of cool. I love it.
But they're saying this, and they're basically saying she's got compassion. She's starting to see Superman and his family as more human, or maybe that's a bad word, but for the context, but more of a life form that does not deserve what she's been sent there to do. And even though she's not made any choices yet, and even when she's talking to the other prisoners, because when she goes to visit the other prisoners who have not woken up yet, who are still lying in a coma, she even says that she knows what she has to do. She still sounds like she's, at least on a conscious level, is still going to try and go through with what she's been told she's there to do.
Yeah.
But Mongol sends in some heavies who rip a robotic heart out of one of their own prisoners because it'll do something to... Is it a bomb, maybe, that they rip out of him that's inside his body? I'm not sure.
Maybe.
Is it?
Whereabouts are you looking?
So it cuts to like the guy who's got like, the big sort of tail, right? The big sort of what's the character from Mortal Kombat who's got the big? He's got 4 arms, Goro, right? This dude does not have 4 arms. Let me make that clear. But he's very Goro-esque in every other way.
Sure.
He rips the other dude in half. And rips out what's like it's like his heart, a robotic heart, but it could be something more specific.
Yeah. It's hard to say what it is, to be honest.
But the reason why I mention it is because he shows up with that. You know, when he shows up in the fortress and he grabs our Philosian woman, he's like, "Hey, you've forgotten like what you were here for, grub." And it's like Mongo believes that you've forgotten what will happen, and he sent us to remind you. And he's got this. I don't know if he's going to use this to kill one of the other Philosians to like make it clear that they're going to die if she doesn't achieve what she's going to do. But Lois overhears some of this, sees it happening, and runs off and grabs a giant alien laser gun, which I think we've seen her use before, actually, now I'm thinking about it.
It looks familiar.
Yeah.
This panel of her standing here at the end with it is like the most Lois Lane thing I've seen in a long time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's hard
like
making
peak Lois.
It's the cliffhanger. It's Lois having a standoff with some aliens who are much bigger than her.
Yeah.
But and Joe, I like about this is that she overhears, like, part of what she overhears is this, you know, alien henchman saying, "Mongol sent you here for a purpose, and you're going to complete that purpose." So she knows that effectively she's been sent here to do something bad to Superman or to Earth or whatever. But she still says she's one of us now, and you know, you pick a fight with someone in this family, you fight with all of us. Like, I kind of love that Lois, in that true Superman spirit, is like, it doesn't matter what she was sent here for. She was still a slave. She was still imprisoned. You have made her think she needs to do something. I'm still going to stick up for her anyway. She doesn't, you know, Lois doesn't act like this is a betrayal, that she can't trust her anymore. Like, maybe it'd be wise to have some precautions, just, you know, until they know they've earned her trust or whatever. But she's still going to stick up for her. It's you know, it's very Superman's spirit, and it's very uplifting, that element of it, I think.
Oh, definitely. It's, as I say, it's Lois embodying the ideology of Superman as well. Like, it's not you know, it's not just him. It's you know, it's his entire family that kind of have this approach. It's why they're a couple to begin with, right? It's they have the same philosophical outlook on life fundamentally.
Yeah, I mean, I always like the idea that Lois isn't aware she is quite to that extent until she meets Superman, and it kind of awakens in her, or you know, this idea that she obviously she always had this in her, but the idea that Superman's presence like brings out the best in us, and that includes Lois as well.
Sure, that's very possible.
But no, it's a fun ending to the issue. I think, you know, I have to admit, like, the Atlantis stuff is probably the weakest part for me, and it's fine, but I'm not necessarily that excited about the dispute over the shard.
I was kind of into it, to be honest.
I don't know.
More into it than I feel like I should be.
It's the Philosian stuff and like Lois's compassion for her that is far more interesting, and I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know. It's just speaking to me as a Superman fan more. It feels like it's obviously what's going to lead to Superman going to fight for them and whatever else. So whether he does that by choice, which he would totally do if he doesn't do it by choice, but part of me also thinks that he might end up being like actually, you know, kidnapped and whatever. I mean, he was in chains after all, and the future state stuff. So it's entirely possible. Art's pretty solid. You know, Saint-Pierre is a solid hand.
Very reliable. Like, has moments of greatness. The alien ripping the dude in half. The super family kind of hovering in the sky with the birds. You know, definitely moments where it's like, this is phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's always great.
He's kind of, this is a weird thing to say, but he's kind of like, he's almost what all of the people who I would just describe as house style are trying to achieve. He's like the he's like he's like the
He's the pinnacle of it.
Yeah, he's the good version of house style, which is not a critique at all because it looks gorgeous. It's just it's but it's not.
I agree that it is house style.
Yeah, but it's not like stylized, if that makes sense. It's not like got a it's got a very kind of like trying to be the best of what a modern comic book's supposed to look like, if that makes any sense.
A modern DC comic book specifically.
Sure, yes. But that's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
But what are you giving Action Comics?
So I'm gonna say 8.5.
Like, I might see more potential in this Philosian plot right now, but I'm not as into the Atlantis conflict, so I think I'll balance this out and say an 8 out of 10.